Hey everyone, blessings and welcome. In this video, I'm going to discuss church and church people, in particular, toxic church people, and basically how to keep your faith if you've had a bad experience in the church. I think this is a topic that we need to discuss more in the faith community, and let's talk about it. Unfortunately, in my spiritual journey and in my faith walk, I have come across a number of people who have joined the church looking for answers, joined the church looking for God, joined the church looking for help and solutions to their problems, wanting to grow in their faith or to learn more about Christianity. And many of these people, good-hearted people, sincere people, and unfortunately they have walked, some of them, into a den of wolves and walked into toxic church environments, toxic churches, and under toxic leadership, and have had some rather traumatizing experiences in the church. Yes, in the church. And some experiences I know certain people have not recovered from, and as a result of these bad experiences in the church, they have stopped believing in God. They have walked away from the faith, and they have just been discouraged and, destroyed on certain levels in their soul and spiritually. This has to stop. And if you're watching this and if you've been in that position, or if you're going through that right now, this video is to encourage you to keep going in your faith, to encourage you to continue to seek God no matter what, and to encourage you to continue to spiritually grow, and to let you know that although you have suffered, and even if you've been through some traumatizing experiences, God is still with you, and God will get you through, and He will heal you from what you've been through. And also in this video, I just want to give an explanation of why these things happen, and basically give you all a word of encouragement from it all. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to bring up in this video, when it comes to toxic people in the church, toxic individuals or toxic leadership, is that when we go to church, we need to understand that all people in the church are not safe. Just because a person say that they're saved and that they're born again and that they know God, or they've been going to church for years, it doesn't mean that they're a safe person. It doesn't mean that they have been doing the spiritual work. Many people can go to church every single Sunday and there be no change for them on the inside. No Spirit of God working in them to change their nature or to change them as a person. So you have people who go to church who are phony, who are fake, who are frauds. You have people who show up for not the right reasons. You have pimps in the pulpit, and people who put themselves in leadership positions to, instead of praying for people, they prey on people. And, they see the church as a good place to run a con, because they know that, when people go to church, that, many people, they're in a bad state, or they're desperate for help, or desperate for change in their lives, and they're looking for something more. And people that are in that state, they're in a vulnerable position, and they're vulnerable. And unfortunately, you have some evil people who come in the name of God, and they basically take advantage of that, and they use that as an opportunity to basically use people and to control people and to manipulate people and to take from people in that position. And it's wrong. But but this is the reality, that not everybody in the church is safe. Not everybody in the church is emotionally safe. You can't confide with everyone in the church. So, you meet someone, and the thing about it in the church is like, in that environment, we're supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be a safe place, but oftentimes it's not. And what happens is we enter the church, and we join the church, and we join the faith community, the Christian community, and we tend to let our guards down. And we kind of like have this Pollyanna-ish unrealistic ideal about how Christians are supposed to be, and sometimes we put people on pedestals that we shouldn't put them on, and we think that all Christians, many of us, not everybody, but think that all Christians are safe, and that's just not the case. There are going to be people in the church that are going to be disappointing to you, or that are going to hurt you in some way. It may not necessarily mean that they're toxic, but they're human beings, and we have a place full of human beings that are not perfect, and someone's bound to disappoint you or hurt your feelings, right? But then you get the toxic people, the people who are really character impaired, and the people who have not done the spiritual work, and these are the people that do the most damage, and these are the people who really hurt people, who are basically hurt, who come to church for answers and to basically better their lives. So we need to know that not all people in a church are safe. If someone tells me personally, hey, I'm a Christian, I'm saved, I'm like, okay, show it to me. Not that I'm judging them, but when people tell me these things, I want to see if what they say match their actions. So if you're telling me that you're saved, that needs to be demonstrated in your behavior. So I'm going to watch the person over time before I open up to them and before I render them, a safe person. And, I think that's something that we should do. Not that we should be in a church, in the body of Christ, watching everyone with a suspicious eye, but I think that we should be cognizant that, hey, not everybody up in here is a safe person that I should be, telling my business to, or, even sometimes, we would go to leadership, we would go to certain pastors. I've seen some cases where pastors, maybe some of them well-meaning, but they've given really bad advice. And sometimes in a church, when you don't conform to the mold or the culture of that particular church or that faith community, they could kind of like shun you and push you out, or you could kind of like become an outlier. I've seen cases where people have actually been kicked out of church for questioning certain things that that was valid to question. But because, the church was run like a cult and it had a cult-like atmosphere and environment, that's why the people were, crushed and basically pushed out. And this is, something that, that kind of like really defeats you spiritually when you go through these things. So we need to know that not all church people are safe. And, it's my prayer that every church becomes a safe place for people to go and to be able to relax and grow spiritually and, to become all that they need to be or that they can be in God. But the reality is that, there's some really character disturbed people. There are narcissists show up to church, perverts show up to church, thieves show up to church, liars show up to church, gossips, you name it. These people, they come to church. So, you got to try the spirit by the spirit. And before you open up, watch people, watch how they behave. Do their actions really align with Christian values or with biblical values? Not to say that nobody is perfect. We're all gonna, basically disappoint or, at some point. But what you want to look for is basically a person having a positive pattern or being consistent in a positive way over time. And that's the way that that this is actually a safe brother and sister in Christ that you can possibly forge a relationship with. And also another caveat and caution is that, you're not going to really mesh with everybody in the church, right? Just because everyone is saved and you're all Christians, it doesn't mean that you have to be BFFs with everybody in the church. Your personality is not going to match up with everyone's personality, and that's fine. It's okay. Or just because you're both Christians, it doesn't mean, especially if someone is exhibiting toxic behavior, it doesn't mean that you have to continually, or you have to deal with that person. There's certain individuals that you should not deal with in the church. And it's okay to continue to be a member as long as it's not exhibited, like in leadership and it's causing a greater problem. But just to know that there's going to be some individuals that you don't need to be friends with. You can just be cordial and, be an acquaintance and smile and, pray that person's strength in the Lord. But, you're not going to connect with everybody, and that's fine. But God will send, you friends and, healthy Christian relationships. If you pray for it, he will send, so these are the things when you join a church that you need to be looking for, consistency and positive behaviors and patterns, and, pray for, right relationships. But don't go into church assuming that everybody is all right, because everybody isn't all right, and you're going to see it. And I don't want you to be disappointed when you do see it. So remember that. Secondly, not only is not everyone safe in the church, you got to look at the church as a hospital. Many people, when they join a fellowship, when they come to God, they are going through serious problems. They need a big change in their lives. Many people come to God suffering and a lot of pain, and they really need the help of God, and they're looking for something different. Like I said earlier, they're looking for answers, and they're in a really vulnerable state. The church, as I see it, is a hospital, and there are many people who come who are spiritually sick, and that's a good thing, because that's where they'll get their healing. But just know that process is a process. I think there's something in the minds of Christians and in Christian culture where we think once we get saved, that's it, and that there's no process. No, there's a process along the faith journey. It's not that you just get saved and you're delivered overnight. There's certain things that it's going to take time for you to get delivered from certain things. There's things that the Holy Spirit is going to have to deal with you on about your character and about things in your life that you need to remove, so he can come in and clean things up, and so that you can really get this new nature. And God really does give us a new nature once we give our lives to him. But that's a process. That's not something that happens instantaneously. I mean, you're going to have some Christians that testify, oh, when I came to the Lord, he took the alcohol away from me immediately, and the cigarettes and whatever addiction or whatever problem they were having immediately. That's great. And that does happen for some people, but for others, it may take a year for them to stop drinking, or a few months. So it's a process, and there are a lot of people who come to church who are sick, and that's where you get your help. But just know that there are people who show up who have a lot of problems, and it does take time for them to heal, and it's a continuous process of us going from glory to glory to glory. We haven't arrived. We all have work to do. I have work to do, and we want to be in a state of continuous growth. And I think the problem that occurs is that people think I'm saved. I show up to church every day. I wear a nice dress or a nice suit to church, and I have the look, I have the title, I have the position, but I stopped doing the work. No, there's some trauma that we have to work through. There are some character issues and some flaws and some things that we need to eliminate and get out of our lives, so that the presence of God and the power of God can be magnified through us, and that we can be all that God has created us to be. But that takes time. So I want you to look at the church as a hospital where it's a place that people go to get well. So when you kind of have that mindset, I don't want you to walk in thinking that, things are going to be perfect and that people are perfect. No one up in there is perfect. But just know that it's a place, it's supposed to be a place of healing. But if you find yourself in a ministry where there's a lot of issues and a lot of people who are a bit disturbed, and you can't trust them emotionally, then that's not the place for you. It's just people who are sick spiritually and who are pretending to be well under the guise of religion. And that's the thing about religion. Religion is a good cover up for certain people. And people will use religion and, religious practices and, the aura of religion to cover up their mess. So, and it's usually a good disguise, especially for, the truly evil. Like I said, there's some people who show up and they just don't have good intentions, and they'll use the church and religion as a way to, do damage and to be corrupt. Unfortunately, those people exist, but just know that the church is a hospital, and just have a little grace with that, and that we're all evolving. Just wherever you are, wherever the Lord leads you, just let it be a place where you see healing and people actually getting better. If you see that people aren't getting better and that there's continuous problems, maybe that's not the church or the fellowship for you. Nextly, and finally, this is what many people get caught up with. And this is why many people turn away from the faith or even stop believing in God. They come in, like I said, with the impression that these are Christians and these are people who have a certain set of values and beliefs that kind of like puts them up here. And, they kind of like put the people on a pedestal, or they have these expectations. And when they go in and they find that these expectations aren't met, then they're disappointed, or they have a very bad experience with a disturbed person, or with a toxic Christian, a toxic person who claims to be a Christian and who isn't doing anything to change their toxicness. And because they are looking at the people and focusing on what was going on, they've allowed the actions of others to dictate what happens with their faith. So don't base your faith on the actions of others. That's basically what I'm trying to say. That's a dangerous thing, because people are going to do what they're going to do, right? We're still, living on a planet, and we still have a sin nature, each and every one of us. At times we're going to disappoint each other. Nobody is perfect. And you cannot base your faith on what people do or what they don't do. As I stated before, I've been in the church a very long time, most of my life. I grew up in a church. My father was a pastor. So, I've seen just about everything. And at certain times, I've actually worked in churches, for employment, and so I've seen a lot of things behind the scene, and I've seen how people behave, and how, certain people, how what they profess to be that's not who they truly are. And I've seen how people have used religion as a mask to cover up, ill intentions. I mean, I've seen so much, and personally experienced some things that would sort of like be traumatizing. But, what's helped me to keep my faith is really focusing on my experience with God. I have refused to allow the actions of others to stop me from growing in God, because the whole focus really should be on us getting to know God better, us growing in God and having that experience. The experience is not about the people. The experience is about God. God isn't an it. God isn't a thing. God is an experience and a journey each and every day. God is everything, right? So when we put our focus on the experience of God, which could be inside of the church and outside of the church in your daily life, and this is what I encourage you all to do the spiritual work. I talk about it in just about every video. Do that spiritual work. Once we take our focus off of people and put our focus on God, that will be the thing that will strengthen our faith, so we can be able to see certain things and be able to have the discernment because of our faith in God, and because we are God-centered, and be able to have the discernment to say, hey, I've seen this, and maybe I should, not be a part of this fellowship anymore, or I've seen this, and that's that person that doesn't have anything to do with God. You know, sometimes people may see the actions of Christians or so-called Christians and they'll be like, well, there's something flawed with the faith, or God is not real if a so-called Christian or a Christian can do that in the church. That's really on them. And, you know, honestly, I'm afraid of, you know, people who know better and still do certain things that are really foul in the church and in the sight of God, and especially if they have titles and they're pastors and bishops and missionaries or whatever title they may have. They're going to have a lot to answer to with God, and nobody gets away with stuff. So that's a really scary and bad predicament that they're putting themselves in spiritually, and they're going to have to answer to God for those things. But don't think that that's a reflection of God. God is not like people. God does not change. God is immutable. God, just because a person might do a certain thing, that doesn't change the nature of God, and that doesn't mean that God's forgotten about you, or you know, and that doesn't mean just because you've had this horrible experience that God has turned his back on you, and that he's not real, or that the experience is not real. God is still real. He hasn't turned his back on you, and you know, I just would encourage you to continue to seek him, even though you've had that experience, even though you've been through a certain thing with individuals, or, you know, a group in a church or what have you. And even though, even if you've been pushed out of a church because you've questioned certain things or you didn't fit in that cultural mold. So I really want to encourage you to not focus on the people, but to focus on God. And when you focus on God and you are God-centered, the things that people do won't even matter. I mean, it's sad, and it does matter, but it won't have an impact on you where you're going to say there is no God or God isn't real. When we stop looking at the people and start focusing on who God is, he will reveal himself more and more and more. So I've seen a lot to the point where, you know, probably your average person be like, I'm definitely leaving Christianity. But because for me personally, God is this great experience and it's just something that I look forward to every day, being with God, knowing God, practicing the presence of God in my daily life. It's like nothing anybody can do or say can take me away from that. And it's just, sometimes it just takes the words out of my mouth how great God is and how this experience is. So I think since I have dedicated my life to the experience and not focused on people, being in a good fellowship and being in a great church just enhances the experience. But the experience for me isn't the place. It's my place in God. And that's basically what I wanted to share with you. Hopefully this video has been some encouragement to you, especially if you're going through a really bad experience in a church. I'm sorry you had to experience that, particularly in a place that should have been safe for you. My prayer is that God will continue to heal you and that you'll get to know him even better, and just know that he has not turned his back on you and that everything is going to be okay. And I pray that he leads you to a place where you can grow and be safe. And, you know, I would say, you know, my job with these videos and in life is to, you know, create a safe space for, you know, believers. And hopefully my videos do encourage you. Please share my videos and like them, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Give me feedback, definitely open to that. But just be encouraged and know that God is still with you regardless of what happened, and he still loves you. That's all I want to share with you in this video. Take care, God bless, and I will see you in the next one.